Hello, welcome to Beyond the Edge. I'm your host, Brandy Deutsch.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee DeMayo, your co-host, Light, Love, and Blessings.
And today we've got Shawn Dolan in the studio because today is a very exciting day. Today is the day we introduce our new show, Impossible Conversations. Welcome, Shawn. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yes,
I'm excited too.
welcome. You're brave to tread in our waters.
It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
This is what our show is about, though, is safety in all areas. We're always safe in every conversation. So, yep.
Sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yes.
Most of the time. So basically what's going on is Beyond the Edge Productions is starting a new show, and the new show is called Impossible Conversations, and it's going to be me and Shawn Dolan, and we are going to be co-hosting, and we're going to be talking to people who have opposing views sometimes, and opposing views on certain topics, and some of these topics are going to be very controversial. And so I want to say we're going to tread lightly, but that might not always be the case, because you never know what can come up in a conversation when people have some attachment, some emotion to it. And so what we wanted to do today is kind of talk to you guys and let you know what this new show is going to be about, kind of clear up any questions you might have, and also just to introduce who we are and why we're doing this. I thought that would be a really great idea.
Yeah, so tell us about Shawn. He's got a pretty
Absolutely.
impressive background and a great radio voice, so he's going to be great for our show.
I have a face for radio,
I
too.
just want to say right now, I'm still trying to figure out how he can record stories for us. Just read stories for us.
Oh, I know.
I should look into that. Maybe I'll make a tape.
Yes.
Hey, a voiceover.
Yes.
I've been looking to get into that. I've done a little bit of that.
Yes.
Not a lot, but
It's great.
one of these days.
Excellent. So, well, Shawn is a percussionist, actually, and he's a drummer and a singer and a teacher, and he's a self-professed truth seeker. I think I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And he holds a master's degree from the Juilliard School in Percussion Performance, and he's performed thousands of times all over the world, and he now specializes in singing behind the drum kit. He has appeared on Broadway on and off, and both live and on cast recordings. And he believes that music is an extension of life and truth, and that he passes that truth on to his students and his audiences whenever possible. So, Shawn, welcome to the family.
Thank you for having me.
So I've actually known Shawn for quite a while now. I don't know if you remember this, Shawn, but you and I met, I think, at your sister's wedding.
Absolutely. I do remember that. Yep.
And that was quite a while ago. 7, 8, maybe.
That was 2013, I think. Yeah.
That was a while ago. So
Yep.
we've been knowing each other for a while. We kind of, pass on Facebook every now and then and connect. So what I want to know is, so the truth seeker part, right? This is what I'm very interested in, and why I really wanted to do a show with you. Is you're an incredible musician. First, let me say that. I know Shawn's an incredible musician. Me and my husband are big fans. But then when he starts talking about, some things that are very controversial, and, I'm asking questions, then he gets everybody all riled up. So I want to know, what got you into questioning things? Like, when did you start asking questions about things that you probably shouldn't have?
Let's see. One of my oldest possessions that I do not have in front of me right now is a Encyclopedia Brown from back when I was probably, I don't know, 5, 6 years old, something like that. I still have that book today. I don't know why. It just passed upon me as I was moving out of my last residence. So I still have that book. And I was doing it all the way back then. I remember even as a child, I thought, someone was growing grapes in our neighborhood, and I thought, grapes don't grow here, and I was completely misinformed, obviously, as a 5-year-old or whatever. But I thought these grapes have to be poisonous, and I always had that mind of trying to help people and trying to help myself and just think about things. And I'm Irish, of course. Dolan were very big philosophers and thinkers, poets, and so I definitely come from that lineage of people. But I think, I've always had that kind of, I remember even as a kid, going through books about different things like pyramids, and, my brother was into this stuff as well. So I kind of got into it with him as well. We used to watch, of course, all the shows, all the 80s shows back then, like with Spock and all the other things like, you know, but that's really, really where it came from, I think. Just being a child of the time that I was in, but I was also just always brought up in that kind of the thing. I guess maybe some of the music I listened to probably had that as well. And I think one of the big things when I first remember really getting into this stuff, I was, of course, the movie JFK came out. And I found that movie to be very interesting, as biased as it might have been, or as untrue as it might have been. My teacher at Juilliard, believe it or not, came in and put a part in front of me after he got back from a session and said, "Here, play this." And on the top of the music, it said JFK, the movie. And
Oh, wow.
I'm like, you just got back from this session? He's like, "Yeah, I just played the field drum. Play that." I'm like, so
Wow.
from that, I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" So my teacher was no slouch. Obviously, he played on Bat Out of Hell. He played on so many different recordings that it's
Wow.
incredible. Pink Floyd, The Wall, he's on that. So
Wow.
yeah, there's a ton of things that he's done. I mean, and he just that just solidified it for me. I couldn't believe he was playing on JFK. I heard it was coming out at that point. It obviously hadn't been released yet, and I saw that, and that kind of got me hooked. And it just snowballed from there. Really, once the internet came out, that it was game over at that point.
Right.
That's
Right.
really when everything started to go crazy for me. And honestly, I didn't really get into any kind of crazy true things that were in any way kind of more so than JFK. JFK is about as controversial as I got up until the time I started looking into the topic we will be talking about in our first episode, which gets people completely insane, like you said, flat earth. I started to get into that in about 2015 or so, and that was the first time I really got into anything that really changed the way I look at the world. And it was really an impossible thing for me to do because, as I said, I had an Encyclopedia Brown, and that was full of the planets and the stars and what they mean and what they are. And
Mhm.
that idea that I had held since I was 5 years old really got challenged right then and there. And I was like, what is this all about? And it really got me into that Irish mode of like,
Yeah,
what do
curiosity.
yeah, that's really all it was that philosopher and
Curiosity.
me just kind of looking at it going, what is this all about? And
Yes.
that's kind of, that's been my story. So
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
I think I think as children we're naturally curious, but if you I don't know about most people's experience, but my experience in like the public school system, I grew up in southern Louisiana, you really weren't allowed to ask questions beyond what the teacher knew. I don't know about you guys, but that
Yeah,
was
they have
kind
a
of the
they have a
experience.
fixed lesson plan,
Yeah.
and it's just like, preachers going to seminary.
Right.
They just regurgitate this. There's no exploration in it unless you have a really unique teacher and doesn't mind being challenged at any
Yeah.
grade, or especially in college.
Exactly.
I,
Like
I I've challenged a few, and they're like, "Oh my God, where'd she come from?" And I'm like,
yeah,
"Well, is this your agenda? Is it the truth, or is it just what's in front of you in the textbook? And what do you
exactly.
want people to believe? What are you trying to convince them? You know?"
And yes, and I really think that's the crux of what we'll be talking about most
Hmm.
of the time on our show is, the difference between fact, evidence, opinion, emotion, beliefs, thoughts, because all of these things I think really make up what we kind of interact with our world, like in people, right? Because we all have these different things that we think about, that we believe, and I think there's a lot of confusion around what is truth and what is not right
Well,
now.
and
Mhm.
y'all both mentioned the childhood exploration. And I can remember, my kids being young, and they're, constantly, what is that? What is that? What is that? And you're like, so, and as parents, we condition to stop asking those questions. It
Mm.
starts early. Oh my God, if you ask me what is that one more time, and but and then it just progresses. But I think with Beyond the Edge, what we do here, and then even more so with Impossible Conversations, y'all are going to help people return to that. What is that? You know, and the exploration and the possibilities of what they thought they knew and believed, and what maybe they haven't had the opportunity to learn, because they're I think, what is it with psychology? They say people, they're product of their environment, you know, and unless you travel or learn or expand, you don't get out of that environment. Wow, what are you missing? What are you really missing? And for me, I think too, I find it interesting how different people are sparked into that. Mine was, a spiritual shift, and then having looked at some books I was reading, I was like, oh my God, when was this written? And all these books are written like 25, 30, 50 years ago. And it's the same stuff, just spewed over and just, kind of tweaked a little bit. And I asked myself the question, well, why in the hell isn't this working, or haven't people got it by now? There has to be something that limits us in understanding to grasp different realities or truths. So I'm hoping with this new show, y'all are able to present both sides, or sometimes there's three sides. There's people that walk in the middle, kind of like me, and go, what the hell? And what is all this over here, left and right, So I think it's going to be really interesting with the perspectives that y'all have and the willingness to let people just voice their opinions,
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of that, voicing opinions, how will y'all handle it when you get the oh, I don't even know what word to use. I don't believe in being politically correct. So so when you get people on there that really are angry or are rude or challenge, just try to bring up hate and division.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question real quick because, first of all of our guests kind of going into it are going to have an understanding that we're here for a conversation. We're not here to be disrespectful to one another. We're not here to throw threats. We're not here to, insult people. I mean, we're really here to have an authentic conversation. And I think this show was birthed out of me and Shawn recognizing that there's a need for goal-directed conversations.
Mhm.
I mean, it just goes willy-nilly all over the place. And I think being able to focus on one or two questions on each show, I think will kind of help direct the conversation into a container, right?
Yes.
So people might get upset, they might get heated. I've facilitated groups for over 20 years now as a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher. I've also hosted healing circles, and in those groups and those gatherings, if you set up the expectations and everybody knows what this is going to be like, then it's very rare. It does happen, but it's very rare that people kind of go off the rails, right?
Yeah.
So when we're going to definitely set the expectations, people are going to know going into it what they're walking into. It's not going to be a yelling or a fight or an argument. It's going to be, this is this perspective and this is this perspective. Now, that said, I'm a Southern belle. I'm here in Texas, and we're cordial and we're nice. But yeah, if I get upset and I get asked my husband, I will just kind of shoot straight and just tell you what I really think and feel. Consequences be damned. Shawn is in New York. He's a New Yorker. He was born and raised in that environment. And New Yorkers are known for being just straight up and just telling you like it is. I married one, right? So I get it. And, it's going to be very interesting conversations that we have because we're coming from two different perspectives.
Mhm.
But I really think we have the same goal. Shawn and I have the same goal. And then we want to facilitate free speech. We want you to be able to say what you feel and you think, and not have a knockdown drag out like you see online, which is the worst place to have a conversation, by the way. Social media is like not the place you want to have a conversation about things that really matter to you.
Especially if it's written, it's not as well conveyed. You can't see the people's emotions. So I really think this is going to help. And I think too, when we've talked about this show, is y'all are going to be able to help identify emotions, feelings, thoughts, and things like that. So that's also going to help keep the conversation flowing in a healthy, productive way. And you made the reference to putting things in a box. We always have open-ended boxes here. It's about provoking thought and potential change or not. You have that option. Do you want to close the box, open the box yourself? We don't really do that. So that's going to be really interesting. And
Exactly. And I want to add one other thing. For me, one of my goals also is to create deeper connections with people.
mhm,
It doesn't matter to me at the end of the day what someone really thinks and feels about a particular subject. I want to know more about that person and get to know them at a more deeper level so that I can say I learned something, or that I could say I feel like I was touched today, or they were
mhm,
touched today, right? So that's another goal for me, is to have these deeper connections with people, whether I
right.
agree with them or not.
And it's also not being afraid to answer a question if you're asked, to have the boldness, or to, really understand, do you really believe what you're fixing to say? And just something really small, several years ago, I had gone to Jordan, and I got on the plane to come back, and for some reason I was moved from the regular seating to first class, and this man was sitting next to me, and you don't talk to Arabic men with the things before they speak to you as a woman. So I'm like, well, here's another Air France flight that I'm not going to have any conversation on. Let me just get my headphones, and everything's in French. So this man, we started talking. He introduced himself, and first, right off being a Texas person, I'm like, bullshit. This is not who you are, because he told me. He said, I'm the advisor to King Hussein, the religious advisor. I'm like, you got to get out your passport. You're all right. So after I'd verified his identity, he asked me why I was there, and we were talking, and he asked me, what did I think about a certain thing in their country? And I'm thinking, okay, I'm on an Air France flight. We really haven't left Jordan very far. I'm really wondering, am I answering this question? And the woman in front of us was, she had gone over there to, what do you call it, pass out Bibles, whatever they do. Can't remember what they're, evangelist or whatever. And she said, can I translate? And I said, yeah, ask him if he really wants me to answer that question, because it scared me. So this is kind of the feeling that we're going to have on the show. People are going to have to be willing to step in and talk about, really what they believe, I think, and be willing to have both sides, because they could be polar opposites. And then you may find somewhere, just because you've delved off into that conversation, you really meet in the middle. There is no difference. It's just the perception of it.
Right.
So it's going to be really cool. So,
Yeah, and asking questions is one of the best ways to better understand different points of view.
mhm,
So there's definitely going to be a lot of ways that we can kind of lean in and ask some questions. They might seem a little uncomfortable to people,
mhm,
but I think we need to lean into that edge,
mhm.
because it's something that we're thinking about, and it's probably a question that somebody else is thinking. And so
Right.
we definitely want to dive into that. And speaking of asking questions, so Shawn, you've been in the music industry for really long time, and what's interesting to me is what's happening in music too. I mean, artists to me have always been mind expanded, and they really open up, not just musicians, but art in itself. What do you see happening in the art world that you're in the musician world that you're in? Is there also polarization things happening, or are people really having discussions?
It's hard to say in music because it's so subjective. So I probably wouldn't know more about, certain types of music that might have different perspectives. So I mean, again, I think we can all learn from other perspectives. Regarding any type of music that I may not even know about. I'm just not even aware. So for me, I have kind of a varied perspective on music. Obviously, being I can play rock, Irish, world. Classical, you name it. So
Pop. I'm
I've
gonna
been
use
around the block
pop.
with a lot of pop, and a lot of different types of music. So, but it seems like music these days isn't searching for truth as much. At least as far as I can tell, it's a little bit more about the entertainment. And I think sometimes when they do search for truth, sometimes it's a little bit contrived, or you can tell that there's a narrative being pushed, or so it really depends. But I do feel like that sense of the '60s movement, where everyone really was writing songs because they were genuinely asking the questions that they should be asking. I don't think that's happening as much lately, and I think it will probably start to happen. I think we're in that climate where the polarization is probably going to start pushing music into that.
Mhm.
And I've definitely noticed that happening not as much with mainstream, but like, you know, the just some things that I've seen underground online or on podcasts or whatever of people writing songs that are very, you know, truther oriented, I should say, you know, like something like that. But again, what is truth? That's what, you know, who's the arbiter of truth? It's really hard to decide that. We are all our arbiters of our own truth, as far as I'm concerned, you know. You know, I always think of that great quote from Jesus Christ Superstar, you know, but what is truth? Is truth unchanging law? We both have truths, are mine the same as yours, that, you know, as Pilate says to Jesus. And I think that's a great quote, because it really is, you know, Jesus says, I search for truth and find that I get damned. You know, but what is truth? That's a great question. I think that's probably the question that we will be dealing with quite a lot.
Definitely.
Everyone has, and a lot of people say, no, truth is absolutely true. Well, not necessarily. Your perspective can be your truth, and, you know, some people don't believe that, but some people do. You know, so yeah, I think searching for truth in any medium, art, you know, online, anywhere you can get it, I think is a great way to kind of approach things, as far as I'm concerned. You know.
Definitely. Yesterday, I posted a video, an old video of, I don't know if you saw it, I posted on Facebook, of an interview with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, and they were talking about overpopulation. And, you know, John Lennon had, and Yoko, they had the same view about it. They're like, I think it's a myth. I don't really believe that there's a thing around over. And the person interviewed is a very popular person. I forgot his name, sorry. But he was like, well, I think that there is truth to that, and I don't agree with you. And John Lennon's like, I really don't care.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. Yep.
That's kind of how I am, except for the things that I would say are immutable. You know, that, and I think, you know, with data practitioner that we do, we learn that the playing with the laws, you know, those things are immutable, but learning how to bend and manipulate things around that becomes the truth that sits in existence.
Yeah,
So,
that's what we're taught. You can bend a law, but can't really break it. You
yeah,
know, like some of the, like the
yeah.
laws of physics, you know, you can bend them a little bit, but that's pretty much what it is.
Yep.
And so those are things that, yeah, this is a truth, and this can be adjusted a little bit. But most of it, I believe definitely is all subjective.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe in objective reality. Like I really have a hard time with that one. So
Yeah.
that one's something we might talk about quite a bit. So a couple of things. So there's a couple of books too that were kind of inspiring this kind of show for me. One was Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but he talked about the various levels of frequency. And that inspires me just on a daily basis, because knowing that everything we do is energy and it's related to frequency. There are certain frequencies associated with happiness, sadness, you know, emotions, of course, but also beliefs and belief systems. There's also frequencies for that. And I'm constantly in the realm of, you know, energetically, what's that about? What's that feel like? And I'm going to follow the energy for sure. So if there's like some energy someone's talking about and I feel something, I'm definitely going to go a beeline for that. You know, I'm not going to have any qualms about going for something. And it will be an hour long, just so people know we need enough time to hash things
right.
out.
There may be part twos, you know.
Yeah, series.
Topic, so.
Absolutely. For our first topic, absolutely. Flat Earth versus sphere Earth theory, like we have to talk about it all, because it is an interesting topic. You know, most people say, oh, that's BS, you know, that's not real, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Just listen, you might learn something, you know, just listen. And also the other book that really inspired this show is called The Impossible Conversation, How to Have Impossible Conversations by Peter Boghossian. And it's an incredible book. I recommend it to everyone. I'll definitely be talking about it. Like, no, that's not it. It's around here somewhere. I keep it very close. So I highly recommend that book to everyone, and we'll be kind of flashing it on the screen and whatnot, so that you see what it looks like. But Peter Boghossian is an incredible teacher. He's a professor. He taught at a college in Portland for a really long time, and he handed in his resignation because he was getting vilified. He was getting threats because he just wanted to have conversations about liberal stuff, about conservative stuff. He brought in flat earthers to his class. He brought staunch Christians to his class, and nobody, the higher ups at the college didn't like that. Imagine that. Why would you suppress at a college open conversation with people? So he's doing his own thing now. God bless him. I wish him the best. I hope it goes well for him. I hope we can have him on the show.
That would be great.
That would be amazing to hear
Yes.
his story and what his hopes are for the world. What kind of conversations he would like to see all of us have. So
I want
anything
to
else?
ask, yeah, I want to ask so that our viewers know and get a heads up on it. When is the timeline? When is this show rolling out? And if they, if there's anything we can add to that.
Yeah, so we're gonna start showing the show after the first of the year. Right now, I have it's kind of Thursday evenings is whenever we will show the show when it will come up for production. But we're gonna start producing next month. So we're excited, and at the same time, we're kind of like, okay, this is like brand new. So after the first of the year, people can expect to see it. And I think we're going to do a lot of replays. I really think we're going to kind of show it as often as possible so as many eyes can get on it. I'm going to be doing some heavy marketing on some alternative social media sites that I got my hands on. So that's going to be exciting.
Some that don't have a lot of censorship and will remove videos because we challenge their beliefs. So
Exactly. I'm just, sometimes you just go, what world are we living in right now? Did I sign up for this reality? I don't know about that. So this is us changing that and living the reality that we want to live in.
That's very good. So, and if anybody wants to be a guest, I guess they can start by applying at this, our contact information. And so our direct line is the 805-500-3343, or message us at Beyond the Edge TV here, and also email the host because she's going to be able to do guests on both shows. It would be Brandy at host.beyondtheedge@gmail.com.
See if I can flash that up.
Yeah, and be sure to put comments in this show today for things you want to hear talked about, questions, give us feedback and ideas.
Is that it?
Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Definitely. We really love to hear from you. We want people to come on who have strong opinions. That's great. Tell us what you think. And here's going to be some of our topics. We're of course right off the bat going to dive into flat Earth theory versus sphere Earth theory. We're going to globe Earth theory. Eventually, I'd like to talk about hollow Earth because I'm very curious about hollow Earth theory. That's a thing. We're going to be talking about, of course, COVID and the COVID narrative, because that's relevant. That's here. That's what's happening right now. I want to talk about other things like the moon landing. I want to discuss JFK. Like, let's get into that. And I have a question, this one question is, how much do we trust that the government's telling us the truth? I think if we would go onto the street and just ask that question, do you think the government's lying to you? I bet most people would say yes. But I think how much they're not telling us, that's relative, right? So that's another question I'm curious about. I might have to hit the street and just start asking people, do you trust your government? How much? How much do you think they're keeping
what
from
is
you?
it, the Illuminati and things like that, all the different
we want to talk about that.
The Freemasons are groups of people that are supposed to be controlling things. So it'd be interesting to get
Definitely.
insight.
Definitely. I mean, definitely those kinds of things and UFOs and, to what extent are these ETs living among us? Like, that's a question because some people think they are. And some people think they're watching us from above. And some people think that they're walking around in meat suits like everybody else. I want to know. I'm so curious. What do people really think about that? It's one of those things that, again, it's very...
Time travel is an interesting topic, too.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Time travel is definitely
get into that. Okay, cool. So why don't we... we'll probably stop right here because there's so much more we could talk about, but we're going to save it for our show. Tune in so that you can see what we'll be talking about next. But we're going to go ahead and show the intro so that people can kind of get a glimpse of what this is going to be about. That's the banner, right?
Oh, that's the banner. Let me get the
Yeah.
video.
So and then
I feel like none of this is new. My world, the chaos around me, what I've known to be true. We think we know, but do we? Tick tock of the clock, and I see hands going all directions. Can't see your face, but I see worry in my own reflections. Something tells me you've seen this face before. Redemption waits for you, I'm sure. I see your eyes in the moon.
That's
it
going to
gives
be
me chills.
amazing.
I know.
It's going to be amazing. So we
Music-
are out of time, though.
I know. Music by Shawn Dolan, by the way. I told you he was an incredible musician, and he gets full credit for that. So thank you, Shawn, for letting us use that.
All right.
No
Stay
problem.
tuned, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Tune in.